Hello everyone, welcome to William and the Magic Box. Today on our show we are going to have David. David is from California in the USA. So let's see what David has to say. Enjoy the interview.
Hi.
Hello David, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for taking the time today for the interview. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
David, before we start our journey, William the Magic Box, tell me something interesting about yourself. First, tell me where are you from?
I live in Palm Springs, California.
Ah, and what's the best part of living there?
Oh, the weather is always beautiful. It's the desert, so it's in the wintertime it's cold, but it's always beautiful and sunny here.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
What do you do for a living?
Oh, what don't I do for a living? That's a really good question. I do massage therapy. I'm a sex worker. I am an author, and I even create virtual reality programs for meditation. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I do a lot. I have a lot of irons in the fire.
Amazing. And I know you are a writer, and you have one book out called Every Grain of Sand.
Yes, yes.
Tell me a little bit about your book.
It's a memoir. It's something that I wanted to write for a very long time. It's a book about how I struggled in my youth and struggled with drug addiction and incarceration and how I came out of that. And it's also a book about the work I do currently in the world with people who are, I hate to say this because people say, but as sort of a sexual healer, sexual conduit for men who feel marginalized.
See, when you say a sexual healer, what's that? What's that?
Big question. The best way I can answer that is that most men who grow up these days, even in heterosexual communities, shame and resistance is a constant player, and we're all constantly being told what and how we should be. And what that does psychically and physically to the body is it creates this barrier and this inability to function freely in a world of where we're sexual beings, and we're very, sex is a really important part of our health and our well-being. And so I think over the past centuries, shame has played a huge part in debilitating men in their sexual lives, especially gay men.
I see. Right, so through the game, I'm going to explore a bit more about your book, about your career, and about yourself as well. All right? So, are you ready to go on a beautiful journey through your memories in life and to share your point of views?
Yes.
Welcome to William and the Magic Box. So I've got here my lovely box full of random fun questions. Okay, I'm just gonna play a song now just for us to move a little bit before the first question. Okay, let's do it. David, just before we start the game, through the journey, if there is a question that you don't have an answer for, you don't want to answer for some reason, I always can change. Okay, it's all very friendly.
Absolutely.
First question for you is, who in your family you'd trade place with and why?
Oh, no one. Maybe I take that back. I really love my grandmother. And so I am very curious about her history, and I don't know much about it. So I would love to explore that. But yeah, that's my answer, and it's short.
And all your family, they are from California as well? They live in California as well, your family?
Yes.
Palm Springs or?
No. We grew up in the Bay Area near San Francisco.
Okay.
And we've kind of scattered around all over the place now. I have 7 brothers and sisters, and wow. my father recently died about a year ago, and my mother's still alive.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Sorry. Big family. Seven siblings is a big family for sure. Next question. Next question for you is, What's the best and the worst of being yourself?
The best is that I wake up every day grateful for my life, for every, I know you probably haven't read my book, but if you read my book, you'll know that I have a lot to be grateful for. And so I wake up every morning and I put my feet on the ground and I close my eyes and I just say, surprise me today. And every day I am surprised. The worst part about my life is that I'm constantly forgetting that I'm grateful. That I have a lot. I'm constantly forgetting how much I have to be grateful for.
And do you believe that you always have had this mindset of being grateful, or through the years, through your memory or for your thing that happened to you in your life made you be grateful even more?
Yes. I struggled a lot for many, many years with drug addiction, and I grew up in a very toxic, abusive household. It was very difficult for me growing up, and it took me a very long time to come out the other side. And when I did, I don't really feel like I had a choice. It wasn't something that came, it just was. If you look back at my life now, you'd be like, I cannot believe he survived that. So it's, yeah, I don't know any other way to answer that question.
And everything is very detailed in your book. Everything is very explained about your memoir in your book.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I'm going to read it. I'm really excited. Next question. I will. Next one. Okay, David, before the next question, tell me a little bit about your career as a massage therapist. It's called sun bath massage. Tell me a little bit about it.
I don't have a sound bowl in here with me. I could have shown you. I did massage like 25 years ago for just a very short time. And then during the pandemic, most of my work around all of my sexual healing and stuff like that evolved to this like travel industry where I took men on trips of a lifetime, and all of that work dried up because of the pandemic, because there's no travel. And so I started doing massage again. And during that period of time, I was visiting a friend of mine who was dying of leukemia. And I had these sound bowls, these crystal sound bowls from Nepal that I used to, another side business, to create a meditation app in virtual reality. And I had these sound bowls. And so I took them to my friend's house and I was playing these sound bowls and giving him massages before he died. And it inspired me to integrate that into my work with all of my clients now. And so I set up a studio outside in my backyard. And because we always have nice weather here, I was able to survive the pandemic and do actually pretty well, and kept myself and all of my clients safe. But the sound therapy just works with energy meridians in the body to help balance and ground you as a part of sort of a wrap up of the massage session. It's really beautiful and immersive.
You saying that a few years ago I was working in a health club, in a spa, and they had this healing sun baths as well. And I remember we had some training, and it was very interesting. How can, give a big impact in your life, the sound when you have the massage. I think it was I was very lucky to be involved as well. Not very deep but I very basically had some classes just to understand a little bit about it, what's for, and I remember listening to it, and the explanation was really, really powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Mm-hmm.
Next question for you is, if you could be an animal, which one that would be and why?
Oh, all of them. I'm an absolute wildlife fanatic, but I think right now it would be a raven, because we have what are called our North American ravens here in the desert. And 2 years in a row, I've rehabilitated 2 ravens, baby ravens that fell from the nest. And so I have a deep connection to these birds. And rehabilitated them and released them to the wild. And every time I see them out and about in the neighborhood and stuff, they come back all the time and they circle around looking for food and to check in on us. You know, I like to think they check in on us, but yeah, they're very smart. Yeah.
Very sweet. Next question. David from California. Next question for you is, what makes you very sentimental?
What makes me very sentimental? I'll tell you what makes me really, really touches me tenderly, touches me really in the soft spot, is when I see parents being wonderful to their children. I didn't grow up with parents that were loving and kind and sweet and took me to, you know, sometimes I go to a lot of rock concerts, I go to a lot of shows, and sometimes I see parents there with their kids waiting in line for hours with their, you know, with their 13, 15, 16-year-old kids. And they're the coolest, funnest, amazing people, and they deeply love their children, and they encourage their children to be the best that they can be. And for me, when I see that happening, it really brings me hope. It really makes me feel like, you know, that's a very important element that our parents raise us, and be cool. You know, be cool to your kids. Oh, can I cuss on your show?
But you get very sentimental, Dave, because you had that or you didn't have that as a child?
Did not have that, right. I did not have that as a child.
I see. You saying that made me remember a situation about my private life. As a child as well, I never had too much like emotions about feeling. Like my parents, they were not showing emotions about how much they loved. I know they did, and I know as well, but there was not emotions. And I remember once I was a teenager, and a friend of mine, he invited me for lunch at his place. And I remember he held his dad's hands, like walking the street. And I was looking at it, I was in shock. And literally, when we got to his place, he literally sat down in his dad's lap and he hugged his dad and he was kissing him. I remember this scene right now because I remember being a child. I never had that. And for me, I was like, oh my God, that's so, even to, you know what I mean, the boy and a father, for me was even more, gave me a big impact because I never had that. And for me, it was so powerful to see that. And I remember they were showing love and, you know what I mean, and exactly understand what I mean. But looking back, I understand. I think when you grow up, you understand. What you don't have it, you don't miss it as a child. You know what I mean? The thing. But when you grow up, when you see those situations, you were like, wow, I didn't have that. But looking back as well, I don't blame my parents at the time because they didn't have either. I think they were very young when they had children, when me and my sister were born. And I really understand now. But back time when I started understanding, you know what I mean, about the emotion, how they can, it really made me kind of wonder and I tried to understand why I didn't have that, why that was missing in my household. So I understand your point. And sometimes when I see as well family, you know what I mean, parents showing support or even there, it gets my attention straight away. It just straight away gets my attention as well.
It's very interesting because my brothers and sisters, they raise their children with great love and affection, and they're really cool parents, and they're really like stand up, and it's just really, it's kind of interesting because they're the opposite of what my parents were to us. They treat their children differently than they were treated as children. So maybe Absolutely. There's some joy in that, right? There's some good information in that.
Absolutely. Next one, let's do it. Before the next one, tell me what's the best part of being a massage therapist and what's the most challenging part?
The best part is, for me, I have been able to, so it's a little lengthy of a story, but it's explanation, I mean. Because a lot of my work early on was mostly very sex-based work, very much getting it on and getting it, you know, like, and making money and paying the bills and buying the house and getting the car and traveling all over the world. And it was really powerful and wonderful. And I really loved doing that. I mean, I loved it. And I loved it all the way. When the pandemic came and I started doing massage, it slowed everything down. Everything went into slow motion. And I felt like, and I still feel like today, like I'm better able to connect with the men on my table. I'm better able to see beneath the wound, so to speak, to see beneath what's eating them today. Because we're all experiencing this very challenging time, period. The entire planet globally, we are all in this chaotic, very interesting, very sometimes scary, it's crazy. And so that shows up in the room every single time. And it didn't always until something big like this happened, but it shows up in different ways. And all of a sudden, what I'm finding is the men who come to see me is they're realizing what's really important to them. They're prioritizing their self-care. People are really taking a look inside and saying, you know, I really need to move through this experience. And so men become more open, they more able to receive, especially people who are in charge of a lot of other people, or people who are in charge of their lives and who are constantly the boss or constantly the dominant figure in any kind of modality that they experience in their life. And it's allowed them to let go. And for me, sometimes my clients will break down in tears. They will just sob, you know, and they'll just be like, a guy a couple of weeks ago was on my table. He goes, looking up at me, he goes, what am I going to do now? Like, meaning like, this was so transformative. It's like, how do I go out into the real world now? Because that was magical. And I was like, don't try to define it. Don't try to check it out. Just experience it and take it with you in the world and go give it out to the people you're interacting with, you know? So that's the real, the gift in the work that I'm doing right now. And the most challenging is, the most challenging is when someone comes into the studio and they with the intention of wanting to be open, but not finding the ability to do that, not finding an ability to receive, and they continue to take control or resist what's happening with them. And it becomes this sort of like, I guess intuitively I pick up on this energy, but it transfers to me in a way, and I get really awkward and nervous, and I tighten up, and I feel like the massage and the sound bath is really crummy, right? I feel like, oh, this guy's not getting anything out of this, and it's horrible, and he hates me or whatever. I get in my head, right? And so and then he'll get up on the table and go, oh, that was the best massage I ever had, and it'd be all me in my head. So the challenging part is that they'll come in, I may judge what's going on inside of them, I get it in my head, and it's complicated, and the human condition is complicated. And so getting in there and getting under the wound sometimes can be very challenging. And so for me, it's either my judgment or their judgment, and it's, all bets are off. Does that make sense?
It does, totally does. It looks like you're a very sensitive person. Sometimes of course, I'm sure every job you do, sometimes there's no connection with with the person, or sometimes you don't connect yourself easily, or there's always a barrier as well. And I think it's part of the the journey, for sure. Yeah. I'm sure imagine if every client you had was like, wow, I don't think you would learn anything either. So it's better for you as well to have
very true. Exactly. The most that is so true. It's the most challenging ones are the ones that teach me the most. The ones the most, it's like, is this coming from you, David? Did you judge the situation and go in? It's wild. But the one thing that I know for sure is to just keep going, to just keep moving through it and trying to set it aside, and just be there and get present, So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Next question for you is, if you could do something illegal without getting caught, what would you do and why?
Yeah, I would do two things, but I know one thing illegal that I would do is I would probably release, all of the dolphins and orcas and wild animals that are held in captivity in amusement parks and into the wild. I know that's kind of a lofty idea and it's a dream, but I would do that because they don't belong in captivity, and they're in constant state of suffering. So for me, it's that would be the reason why.
Oh my God, that's lovely. Who is that?
This is Sia, like the singer, Sia.
Oh, hello, Sia.
Sia, who's in the box? Oh, she doesn't like the box. Sometimes I FaceTime her and she does not like it. She's like, "Where's my daddy?" So yeah. Why is he in a little box?
Next
They'll
question.
scratch at the
Next question for you is, what does money mean to you?
Money?
Yeah.
Money means mobility and freedom, but it also is energy for me, and it's something that I get to work with. And I've been saying this a lot lately, is I don't work for money, and I don't think of it as something that I strive to get. I work with it, and sometimes it comes in and sometimes it goes out, and wherever it's at on its journey towards me or away from me, I'm doing the best that I can to utilize that energy in a way that feels useful in the world, in a way that feels useful in my life.
You believe that money can bring happiness?
It helps. Money, I don't think it can buy you happiness, and I'll tell you why. Because I got into a motorcycle accident many, many years ago, and I was coming into this huge amount of money. I knew it was going to solve all my problems, and I waited, and 5 years came, and I got this huge check, tons of money, enough money to, do a lot with, and it didn't solve my problems. It didn't change anything. It actually, because I wasn't aware of the mindset that I thought it's going to solve my problems, instead of thinking I'm going to work with this money, it was gone before I knew it. And so, no, it didn't bring me happiness. It did pay some bills and did, get a lot of fun stuff, but that's not what brings me joy. So.
I see. I was watching an interview once, a few years ago, with a Brazilian entertainer, and he said, we were talking about money, and he said, I prefer to go back home crying in a limousine than crying on the bus. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of flexible. It cannot bring happiness, but it can be, sometimes can be comforting, let's say.
Yeah.
Next question. Right, before the next question, when was the moment that you said, okay, I'm going to write a book about your memoir? That was, as you said, there was few facts in your life that happened to you, but when was the idea? How did come up the idea to write your memoir, your book?
About 11 years ago, maybe even longer now, I wanted to write the book. And I sat down and I started writing it. And I got, I don't know, I wrote maybe 20,000 words or something, but I got stuck, and I thought, well, I don't know how to do this. I'm not a writer. I'm also not educated. I don't have a writing background. I'm not taught, I'm not, classically or educated in writing. And so I kept putting it off, and then it came, and a lot of people over the years, partners and friends and family members and stuff, would say, you have to write a book, David. You have to tell this story. People need to know because it will help other people. And so I was just perusing the internet one day, and I was looking for somebody to help me. And I found this wonderful co-author named Heather Ebert, and I gave her a call, and we cut a deal, and she helped me craft and write. And I didn't realize how much work is involved. A lot of people think I'm going to write my story. I'm going to tell my story. I'm just going to write it. I'm put it on Amazon and everyone's going to hear my version of events. And that isn't how it works at all. Like, that isn't how it works. It's a lot of work, and it's very difficult. And I knew that if I just told my version of events, it would just be my version of events. And so I had a person there to question me, to interview, to really dig deep into the truth, behind the truth. Like, what stories am I telling myself that are true, or what stories am I just telling to protect myself, right? Because there's some really, really dark, difficult stuff in my book. Like, there's a lot of trauma in my book, a lot of very difficult stuff. But there's also a lot of really beautiful victories in there. There's a lot of really beautiful challenges that are, while they look dark and painful on the outside, what really matters is, and I think that happens with a lot of people, it's how we choose to deal with it. And so she was able to craft this arc of the story and bring this book together and really help me make this story readable. Very, very readable and enjoyable. And I've gotten a lot of awards and a lot of really great feedback from the book. So it was about, maybe it's 4 years ago now we started working on it. Came out in my book launched March 13th, 2020, which was the day we went into lockdown.
Oh, wow.
I was actually on my book tour. I actually had my opening party for my book launch party. And I flew to New York to go do a reading at the LGBT Center in New York City. And we went into lockdown. And so I skipped the LGBT Center and flew home, and we went into lockdown. So I never got to really tour my book, but I did a lot of Zoom. Zooms.
Very good. Okay, next question for you is, what is the biggest difference between you and your best friends?
Maybe this may even sound harsh. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that I feel like, I don't know that my best friends or the people that I interact with, my closest friends, are doing what they love to do. Most people work at jobs that are like, that pay the bills, and I am doing work in my world like that is that there's no I won't negotiate my lifestyle. I won't or my integrity. I won't do any of that. I won't bargain. I'm willing to go work at a Starbucks. I'm willing to go work at a grocery store if I have to. But I do the work that I love to do because I love doing it, and it also provides me with a wonderful life. And I feel like that's the difference, is I get a lot of gratification out of the work that I do. I have no complaints, about that at all. And I think that's the only difference. But most of the people in my circle are pretty amazing. So
very good one. Next question for you. Let's do it. Before the next question, in your opinion, what's the biggest stigma of sex in the gay community?
I don't know about the biggest stigma. For me personally, it is the being a sex worker, being an escort. When a lot of people have judgments about that work, and because they think, oh, how could you sleep with or have sex with men for money, or how can you have sex with guys who are not attractive, or they don't fit what society thinks is appropriate. And and my answer to that is, it's the work I love to do. It's the work that I enjoy. I can have sex with any number of people if I want to get on the apps or do all kinds of stuff, and I do actually. But I also love the ability to be a part of somebody's shift in self-acceptance, a part of the shift in the ability to see somebody who may be, what we consider incredibly overweight, feeling acceptance, or somebody who feels completely unlovable, or untouchable or invisible, especially older gay men who feel invisible. They're being stigmatized by their own inner
society.
Culture. Our own umbrella of the LGBTQIA2 is all of a sudden the 60, 50, 70, 80-year-old guys are no longer available for adulation, or they're not attractive, or whatever it is. And what happens is, what they don't see is that people who are in their 60s and 70s and 80s, these men who paved the way for us to have all of this freedom, many of them never had the ability to explore their sexuality. They had the ability to find acceptance. They were busy fighting wars, they were busy demonstrating, they were busy working jobs, being married, having children, grandchildren, things like that. And so now that they have the funds or the ability to do that, they find acceptance in the room with me, And so I always get a kick out of it, because I'm just like, this is the best thing, for me. It's that type of acceptance and that energy exchange, that chemistry that happens in the room between two men. It doesn't matter if you're the hottest guy on the planet or you're the 400-pound person. If you're both connected, the chemistry is there, and you're able to accept one another. I feel like I'm getting more out of that exchange than the person in the room with me. So, but yeah, I feel like that's the stigma that comes with the work that I do.
Right. Next question for you is, if your plane was going down and you could call just one person to say goodbye, who that would be and why?
My partner, yes. It would be my partner, Todd. I have been in a relationship for 10 years with somebody who challenges me. He's very challenging. But, when I met Todd, I didn't think it would last a month. And I told him, I said, I'm a sex worker. I have a very busy life. I don't have time for monogamy, and I don't have time for jealousy, and I don't have time for games. I do have time for honesty and authenticity. And if we can share that together and you accept that, it's on. And for 10 years now, it's been on. And there isn't a single day that goes by that we don't say I love you to one another, that we don't hold each other, that we don't have amazing, even 10 years later, we have amazing, wonderful sex life, even though I'm working and tired and he's working and tired, and we both have multiple businesses, and he's got as many irons in the fire as I do. But at the end of the day, we're at home in bed with our 3 dogs, and we are, that's who I would call like going down. I've been warning you about this for years. Just in case. I wouldn't have to call him though, because he would already, it's very interesting. I would never have to call him, because he knows if I died today, I lived a full life, that I have no regrets, and that he is fully and completely loved. So, nothing gets left unsaid in this household. Even the hard stuff.
Lucky Todd. I think he's very lucky. For sure.
Like, I'm pretty lucky.
3 questions left for you. Okay, let's do it. Next question for you is, David, what things do you consider to be relationship deal breakers?
Relationship deal breakers. Well, physical abuse, of course. Physical abuse is definitely. That's a tough question, because I feel like there's been some deal breakers happen with Todd, like that my perceived deal breakers years into our relationship, and not violence or anything like that, but things I thought that I could never deal with. Like, I would never, 10 years ago, I would never have dated a man who has an opinion about something like this particular thing and says it out loud. That would be a deal breaker for me. But I've learned to sit at the table, to challenge his opinion and say, what you said was inappropriate, or what you believe, to me, doesn't feel in alignment with my ideology of being kind and loving and all of these other things. And I learned a lot from that. But the other deal breakers are stuff like somebody who is constantly manipulating, or jealousy, things like that. Like, I couldn't, I've had multiple boyfriends over these past 10 years, and who I've loved deeply, who I've loved, definitely been hot and heavy with. But Todd was never excluded from that relationship. Todd never felt outside of that involvement. It was always very upfront and honest. And one boyfriend lived in New York for a while, and we just have that ability to be honest and open with one another. And he would say, whatever our rule is, if it makes you happy, please do it. Because if it makes you happy, and I know that you're happy, how can I be hurt by that? So
that's
not very conventional.
I love that. Amazing. 2 questions left. Let's do it. Before the next one, I would like you to tell me a funny story or interesting story that you had with a client as a massage therapist, something unexpected or something funny, anything you could share.
Oh boy, I do have a good one. I don't think I can share it though. I have a really good one.
No names, no names.
No, I wouldn't. No, I will. Not the massage. This is more of an escort thing, but I got hired on an overnight appointment from somebody I didn't know, and I was short on money at the time, and so I made the mistake of saying, yes, I'll do it, and jumped on a plane to go see him without a lot of, not getting a lot of information. And that is always a red light indicator that things could go awry, and not being very prepared. And I showed up at this guy's house, and he actually was living in his mom's house, and his mom was out of town, I guess. And we were doing what I do, and he runs into his dresser, and he breaks it in this box, and there's do you know what poppers are? They're like inhalant.
Yep.
Okay, so he broke out a bottle of poppers, and then he broke out like a can of aerosol poppers. It's a different type of, it's the same thing. You inhale it, and it gets you, allows you to let go a little bit. And so he started sniffing poppers and spraying this gas into his mouth, and we're doing what we're doing, and he passes out. And I didn't really understand what was going on. And so I flipped him over, and he was purple. And I took my fingers and I opened up his airway. He was suffocating. I know it doesn't sound funny, it sounds tragic, but I run, get the phone, I call 911, and I get back and I pull him off the bed, because the bed was real. I couldn't do CPR on him if he was on the bed. So I pulled him onto the floor, and I have my fingers down his throat, open up, and I could hear him breathing. So he came to, and he looks up at me and he goes, "What did you do to me?" Just as he said that, the fire police come crashing through the door, and he's like, "I don't know what this guy did to me." And I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm done. I'm going to jail. And so I showed the police and the fire department the poppers, and I said, this is what was happening, and he did too much of it, and he passed out. And they were laughing, and they made a big joke of it. They wanted to take him to the hospital, but he refused. He was like, "I don't want to go to the hospital. You got to leave." And, I ended up having to stay the night in the airport and go home, but he didn't want to pay me. I was like,
I was about to ask you that. He paid
oh yeah,
you
you're paying me. And so he was so weird and so paranoid about the whole situation. He went to his, the lint trap in a dryer, and pulled the lint trap out, and all this money came pouring out. He picks up, the amount of money that he's supposed to pay me, and he paid me, and I got into the cab and I went back to the airport. But I know that sounds crazy, but it was one of the most craziest things that ever happened to me. I laugh about it now because I would never find myself today in a situation like that, but just the idea of how crazy that is that he came to and he's like, what did you do to me? You know, it's like, that was really, you know, that put the icing on the cake for me.
Oh my God, that's very scary. I would be so scared. My goodness.
I was terrified.
Oh my dear.
Some of the best stories come from terror.
Absolutely. Next question for you is, what makes you really angry?
A lot of things. A lot. I think what's making me the most angry today, hold on, come here. It's okay. I have my little baby Petey, who never makes me angry. He sits down on the front and goes, he just wants to be held. What makes me really angry today, right now, is selfishness. The selfishness in society at large. Like, here we are, we're experiencing an unprecedented global pandemic. You know, hundreds of thousands of people are dying. And people are just like, so self-involved. They're so selfish and self-centered. And I think the scary part about that is that I see a part of myself in that. I really see a reflection of myself in that behavior. And I think to myself, you know, I could be that guy who's throwing the temper tantrum at the airport. I could be that guy. And I have been that guy in the past, you know? And so I think it's just a reminder to me to really reflect on the tender parts of myself that really need nurturing, to be really careful about that, because we're such a divided world right now. It feels like everybody just wants to rip at each other, and that really pisses me off. It's like, that's not how it was in World War II. That's not how it was during the Vietnam War. That's not how, you know, people were divided, but it was, we got together on things. People, you know, got their nylons and their fabrics and their fuel and stuff, and people shared it, and it was just a different world then. And now I just feel like, and I'm not pointing a finger or blaming it at anything, but I think we're missing the mark right now. We have this opportunity right now for unity that is unprecedented. And I think that's what really frustrates me the most. It's like, this is not who we are as a human race. It's not, well, it is who we are as a human race, but it's our turn. It's time now to turn the corner on that. That's just bullshit, and we don't need that. It's like, you know, it's crazy.
I think nowadays I think we are too busy with our lives, and we forget about, you know what I mean, people around us sometimes. I think we need to focus on that more, for sure.
Yeah.
David, ready for the last one?
Yes.
Let's do it. Last question. But before the last question, what would be your best piece of advice to someone who would like to start a career as a massage therapist?
I think the best piece of advice that I could give is to try it, because I don't believe it's for everyone. I don't believe that, you know, it's interesting because I didn't want to do this work. It wasn't my intention to be who I am today. It came to me as a matter of survival. It was something I felt I had to do in order to pick myself up off the street, how to get a home, to get food, and to get, you know, and to survive. And it became something more. It became something really powerful and empowering for me. And I don't think that's a story for everybody. And I don't think everybody has to have that story. But I think really dip in and then ask yourself, is this something I really feel compelled to do? You know, there's a lot that goes on. And dip in for a little while and then come back out and give yourself permission to say, you know, this isn't for me. A lot of people will say, I'm going to keep doing it because I'm able to pay my rent. But you can pay your rent by starting an Etsy. You know, you can pay your rent by doing all kinds of things, and it doesn't take a lot. And so, yeah. But I would like to add to that also is that really ask yourself, is this empowering? Does this feel loving to myself and to others? Do I feel useful in the world? And I'll tell you, that's the one. I was a dog walker. You can probably see my little magnet on my door. That's me walking my dog. I was a dog walker many years ago because I had just gotten out of prison and I didn't have a job and I didn't have any skills and I didn't have a life and I needed to survive. And so I took my friends' dogs and my own dog and I started walking them at the park, and I started telling people I was a dog walker, professional, and I became like one of the leading dog walkers in San Francisco. It was amazing, and I made tons of money. It was great. But every morning I woke up and I thought to myself, I feel useful in the world today. I feel like I'm a part of society. I feel like I'm a part of the human race now. I feel like I'm doing something that's impacting the lives of these dogs. It's impacting the lives of the owners. It's impacting the lives of the people around me and the people that I'm dealing with. And so there's nothing more powerful in the world than to feel useful. And I don't think that we give a lot of credit these days to the idea of feeling useful. And there's it's Panache Dansai who says, your job, no matter what it is, if you're the janitor or if you're the CEO, is just there to teach you how to love people better. Wow. You could work at McDonald's and you're in training to learn to love people better. You're learning to love yourself and others better. And the interactions that you're having with the world and the things that you're doing is all training. It's all training. And so it doesn't matter what you do. If you're useful in the world and you feel like you're learning to accept yourself and to love others better, you've won. You've won.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful message. Beautiful message. Last question for you is, tell me 3 fun facts about yourself.
3 fun facts. I have a lot of fun facts about myself. I am a big-time wildlife adventure traveler, and I have been to all 7 continents, and I have swam with humpback whales. I have sat in the jungle with mountain gorillas, and I have walked the streets of Bali with street dogs. I mean, I've done so much. So that's one thing. And then another thing is that you probably won't, or people who are watching this probably won't think this is very interesting, but people who know me, or people who follow me on social media, or who would never think this is true about me, but I love to be home. I love to sit and do nothing. I love to sit in my living room with my dogs and watch, what is it? House Hunters International. That's one of my favorite things ever. And the other thing is, let me think, what's another good thing? Oh, I can tell you one. I do flow arts. I'm a flag dancer. I don't know if you've ever seen those guys at the clubs with the fans and the flags and stuff like that. I'm a part of a big community of people who do flow arts, and I do fan dancing, and I do flags, and I do poi and things like that. And I can spin a little fire, so that's it.
Very good, very good. David, it's not the end yet. Okay, let's play now the word association game. I'm going to give away some words, and you just tell me one word that comes to your mind. Quick thinking, okay? Let's start with money.
Love.
Family.
Complicated.
How about love?
Love?
Yeah.
Passion.
Life.
Usefulness.
One word for sex.
Hot.
Politics.
Oh. Selfishness.
Religion.
Selfishness.
One word for fear.
Shame.
Friendship.
Love.
Desire.
Sex.
Regret.
None.
One word for success.
Love.
Wish.
Hope.
One word for happiness.
Patience.
One word for California.
Wonderful.
One word for USA.
Not so wonderful, right? Complicated. How about that? Complicated.
One word for massage therapist.
Fulfillment.
One word for sex worker.
Connection.
And the last one now, every grain of sand.
Seatbelt, as in buckle up, because that's a tough read.
Interesting. So let's pretend now we're going to meet your lovely partner for a coffee. And I'm going to ask your lovely partner, tell me the most beautiful thing about David, and tell me something that he still needs to work on, to improve on. What do you think your partner would tell me?
He would say David is one of the most wonderful, loving, generous, kind guys he's ever met, who would take his shirt off his back for anybody. But he needs to work on that. He needs to be a little more selfish. So he would say, I would also need to work on my impulse to pick up and take off to Tahiti and places like that. He would say I'm very impulsive and that I'm very self-righteous. I love to be right, which is not always a good thing, because one of the things I've recently learned is that I ask myself this question all the time. What if there was no such thing as right or wrong or good or bad, and we just saw things for what they were without judgment? And that's a question I have to ask myself. Are you participating in this duality of right and wrong and good and bad? Are you not just seeing things for what they are? And that is a tough question, because we have been born and raised to learn what's right and wrong, and to get the answer right, and to see the problem and solve it, and all of these things around truth and lies and wrong and right, good and bad. When we remove the judgment from that and we step aside and we get on the outside of that and we see things for what they are, we actually get a perspective into the wound, and we start to see people for who they are. And deep down inside every single one of us, we are all these very lovable, beautiful, and interesting, complex humans that will drive me crazy if I go on and on and on about it. But yeah.
I think in the end of the show, I was about to ask you to tell a positive message, but I think this is one of the most positive message I ever heard. I think it's really interesting saying that about good or bad, what's wrong or right. Really, you just made me kind of wonder now that I never thought this way. I think it's a very interesting point, David. Thanks for sharing that. But before you go, I just would like you to ask me a question. Let's play now, David, and the magic box, and you can ask me a question.
I'm gonna do a random question. So a few years ago, I created this card deck. And when you said that to me, it's called Living in the Questions. And so I'm just gonna randomly pick a question for you to answer.
I love it. I love that.
Some of these cards are horrible though. So if it's terrible, I won't answer it. Okay. Let's see.
Oops.
Ooh!
I'm scared.
What have you been shortchanging yourself all along? What if I have been shortchanging myself all along? And so these questions are questions that we ask ourselves that we don't. So what have you been shortchanging yourself with recently?
I think I'm not having maybe proper rest. I think I'm giving myself a hard time now because I'm not resting myself enough, let's say. I think I'm focused a lot on this project right now, which is I could work 24 hours because I love doing it. But I realized that I start to work on it actually a bit to just, as you said, about staying home and doing nothing. It's something that I never allowed myself to do that. And actually I was in Canada now. I just came back a week ago. I was in Canada for Christmas and for New Year's Eve with my best friend who had a baby. And I literally, David, he's my godson, and I literally stayed there. I brought my trainers to go for a run. I brought some stuff that I could do, but I let myself off not doing anything. I remember eating, like having dinner, have lunch with him, with his girlfriends, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't done that for so long. I haven't lied down in a sofa, like just watching a movie or literally not doing anything. I haven't allowed myself for a long time. So I believe that's a short break I had now in Canada. I was still doing these interviews, that I was still doing it, but in a very short proportion, let's say. And I allowed myself just to be there doing nothing. I brought my trainers. I even didn't take my trainers from my bag to go for a run one day. Can you imagine? For me, it was like, wow.
I love it.
And he was telling me, he was like, oh my God, William. I remember I was talking to him over the phone before I went. I said, oh, I'm going to bring my trainers. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to do that. I said, okay, let's do it. In the end, he was like, so we didn't go for a run even one day? I said, yes. And I'm so happy I didn't, because I allowed myself not to doing anything, like just to be relaxing.
Good for you. Yes.
Yeah. Good question. I love the question. My God.
What a great show.
David, did you have a good time? Did you enjoy the interview?
I did. It was wonderful.
Thanks so much for being so open and for being so transparent about your life, about your daily basis. I think it's nice to connect with someone very transparent. They just could talk about anything. I think it's a gift, people, when they're open about their lives and sharing. I'm sure people watch that, they're going to appreciate as well, and they're going to connect with you. Thank you so much for the interview, and we keep in touch. Okay?
See you. Thank you so much.
So, did you like the show? Don't forget to give a like, share it, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to be part of the show as well, first, subscribe to our channel, and after that, just go to our website, www.williamandthemagicbox.com, and send us a request saying why would you like to be part of the show. And I see you there. Bye bye, see you next time.